Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italy travel podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Milton.
And today we're going to be talking about two things. This episode will be why you shouldn't come to Italy in August, and the next episode will be why you should come to Italy in August.
And if you listen to our last episodes, you might know that we're trying out a new format where we do 2 episodes per week coming out on the same day, but we keep them a bit shorter. So you're getting the same amount of content, but in 2 episodes.
And we figured we might as well take advantage of this by essentially this would normally be a pros and cons episode, I would, of Italy in August. But now we thought for some of you who are thinking, I really want to go in August because that's when I have time off, but why shouldn't I go? Then you only need to listen to a 30-minute episode. And then on the other hand, it's, I don't really want to go in August, but maybe there's some sort of things I'd be missing. I should listen to that episode instead. So we thought it might be easier for y'all listening to kind of have more specific sort of point. And then, of course, you can listen to both of them if you just like the full experience.
Absolutely.
And before we get started, if you'd like to follow us, you can do so on Spotify. You can do so on Apple Podcasts. You can follow our social media accounts. Only a Bag Podcast on Instagram, Only a Bag on Blue Sky. And we have a Substack if you're interested in kind of reading, what I write basically about this. It's more going to be a little bit more sort of whimsical. It's called Letters from the Balcony. All of those links will be in the description. We also have a website if you'd like to check out any articles, onlyabag.com. Last but not least, if you've been enjoying this podcast and you'd like to donate, we would deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. It is ko-fi.com/onlyabag. That's coffee.com/onlyabag. All the links are in the description, and I really should get a job with NPR because I feel like this is a great NPR voice.
That was a good spiel, or some sort of ad agency. I don't know.
I know.
It was good.
I feel like they're like, we need a calming young man's voice. I don't know. I don't know what they put out for, because it was always like a transatlantic accent, which is not mine. So I guess we're going to start with the negatives because we think it makes sense to kind of go negatives then positives, or then positives to negatives. So you kind of end on the high note. Yeah. Of course, when we say end, we mean the next episode will be on the positives. So you're in the wrong place if you're looking for positives, I guess. Darcy, you want to start with the negatives of coming to Italy in August?
Sure.
Ferragosto.
Okay. So Ferragosto is a holiday. It's kind of a holiday period, but specifically it is August 15th, which is the Assumption of Mary.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm saying yes because we actually did 2 episodes on this. It started as August 1st as if I'm not mistaken, it was a celebration of the harvest, and then later became the Assumption of Mary. And I even think it was I think only became a really big holiday actually under Mussolini, weirdly, speaking of fascism, because I think everyone's speaking of fascism
We're
these
just
days.
always all speaking of fascism.
It just seems like on every headline.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that it became under him because it was where you, basically it was like trains offered cheaper tickets.
Oh, right.
So it was like essentially this big encouragement to get out of the cities and go explore the beauty of Italy. It was very nationalistic, sort of like, we have beautiful places too. Sort of like, I think America did something similar with its national parks. Mm-hmm. Which I think everybody in the 80s was going to national parks to be because I think they weren't free or cheap. There was something though. I bet there's some sort of big push in the 80s, I thought, to kind of get people go spend the week at the national park.
Yeah, weird silver lining of nationalism.
Yeah, right?
But
national
it's
parks.
Something. Well, I mean, national parks are great. I was thinking about Ferragosto.
Oh, yes. Yes, Ferragosto. Yes. So what is Ferragosto for the lay person, for just the regular person coming here?
It is a period of time when many Italians are on vacation. So Italians get how much vacation time?
I think legally 4 weeks.
Okay, I thought so. And a lot of places essentially will close either for the whole month of August or about two weeks in the middle or end of August, sometime around August 15th, which is the actual date of Ferragosto. And for you, that means that a lot of people leave big cities and go to the beaches.
Yes. So I guess the first downside, if I may segue that, is if you are planning on going to Cinque Terre, the Amalfi Coast, anywhere with a beach, and those are the 2 big ones, obviously, but no one really swims in Cinque Terre. I mean, they kind of do, but not really. Like Amalfi Coast, yeah, for sure, people swim there, but not so much Cinque Terre. I mean, it's beautiful swimming. It's just more like people go to see the towns. Yeah. But if you're going anywhere, we talked about Scario in the last episode, which is sort of a really beautiful alternative to the Amalfi Coast or alternative to Positano, and especially towns like that. Scalea, where we've talked about a few times, we spent a few months there. They will just explode
The
in
beaches in
growth.
Puglia as well
The
are
beaches in
huge.
Puglia,
Lots of
yes.
people go to lakes. There are lots and lots of lakes in the inside of Italy, in the interior. So a lot of people are
Absolutely.
just going places to cool down.
And actually, even on that note, like if you're in because we've talked about this in Rome, like Lake Bracciano is really popular, and that's something where you'll notice, especially in August, it's even if basically if people can't afford to go stay there like for a week. I mean, the buses and the trains there, because we went to Bracciano for your birthday, and it was just like this. I mean, an empty city, and all of a sudden you get on the I think we took a train up there the first time and a bus back or something like that, and it was like wow. And we assumed that people, because it wasn't just to Bracciano, it goes like past Bracciano, but like everyone got off there. I'm like, oh, okay, it's a day on the lake.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a definite like aspect of if you are expecting a really calm, chill sort of summer on the beach vacation, August is not the month to do so.
No, the beaches are going to be packed.
And I also, again, sort of segueing, if you're also somebody who's more like, I want to spend some time in nature, I want to go hiking, I want to go, I mean, the Dolomites are great for hiking, the Pyrenees are great for hiking. So if you're into hiking, if you're into getting out in nature, it can also be really, really packed. And there's a kind of a, I guess, again, segueing. We're learning how to do this 30-minute episode, y'all. We're if it's too quick, we apologize. We're trying to figure out how to make our long-winded spiels into a shorter time period. But there is I think not an expectation, it's a practice. I think of a lot of people in big cities. If you're from seaside towns, you go there. If you're looking for a vacation, you go there. But a lot of people tend to also be from small, I would say mountainous towns, but only because I mean, to be
There's just
fair,
a lot
there's
of
a lot of
mountainous
mountains
towns, yes.
in Italy. I think I don't realize it, or I never knew that because I think I'd seen pictures of like Tuscany
Right.
or even a lot of parts of Puglia are quite flat. But then I mean, from the north all the way south, there is a mountain range, a mountain
Yes.
chain. So
So much of Italy is mountains.
yeah, and I mean, obviously, so many people are from mountains, and a big practice because we live in a very small mountain town now, and a big practice is it. I mean, again, normally 1,000 people live here, and it's something like 7,000 or 8,000 in August when everybody who, their kids move to a big city or their grandkids move to a big city or they just moved out of the country, but mostly big cities. Everyone comes back from Rome or from Milan because it's, I mean, 10 or 15 degrees cooler here, and the nights get down to like mid 60s and the days are mid 80s to 90s. So it's a bit of a, I don't know. It's the sort of natural ebb and flow, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
And as we've said before, a lot of people have large family homes in these small medieval towns. So a lot of different family members will come back to their giant family home, or it might not be giant, but a lot of people pack into these homes in these small towns to get away from the heat in big cities during their vacation from work. So a lot of people are in these tiny little towns, which can be good, and we'll talk about that a bit in the next episode. But it also means that the large cities lose a bit of their authenticity because so many Italians leave the big cities, and then the small towns don't get overrun, but it can also be a lot. Like for us, we're used to very tranquil quietness, and when lots of people come into town, it's a bit uproarious. Not in a
sure.
bad way.
No,
It's
for
just
sure.
a change.
It's also, I think, like I mentioned too, it's not just other Italians, but it's people who, like, if your family moved to South America or North America, they would come back to visit. So all of a sudden, like, where obviously like dialect and some Italian spoken year round, it becomes more like you hear a lot more English and Spanish. It's just, so, I mean, for people who basically are coming back, so you're like, oh, and it becomes a lot more. And again, there's a lot of, I mean, we'll talk about this next episode, festivals and stuff. But yes, it's an interesting shift and interesting change, which is all to say, though, if you are into trying to get out into nature, if you're like, I want to go in August and I want to get in the mountains, I want to go hiking, I want to go camping, I want to just go and kind of explore the more rural or off the beaten path parts of Italy, you can do so for sure. But that is also the same time when a lot of other Italians do as well. So it can be like, just compared to June, for example, a night and day difference. And the same thing with the beaches, even late June, early July. I mean, we talked about in the Scario episode, we went to the beach at the hottest Friday that we've had for a while. And it was, I mean, a third of the beach was full, maybe.
Yeah, there
So-
was plenty of room.
I mean, versus again, August when it's going to be 100% full.
One note I want to make on talking about hiking, you're probably going to be fine, but there are wildfires happening right now.
Yes.
It's very dry everywhere I think everywhere in Italy, certainly where we are. So again, you're probably going to be fine, but just keep an eye out. Look at the news if you plan on going hiking, because there might be wildfires happening.
Yes, that is actually, we left the beach and there's a helicopter that was going to pick up water.
Seawater to drop on the wildfire, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting day at the beach with that sense. And actually, even the next 2 days later, I think it was all of a sudden the entire day was super, not overcast, but smoky, essentially. It's been
There's a fire in a field below us, not right below us. We're totally safe, but out on a farm, as we were coming back from the grocery store one day, there was a fire that had somehow gotten out of hand, started, I don't know, and burned up about half a field.
And that was, on that note, it is a bit of a shame because there's a lot of old school farmers here who will still burn stuff even in the summer. They burn things year round, just like, the things that are dried and harvested and whatever it is. And a lot of times during like major droughts, they'll still burn things, and it sort of just gets very much out of control.
Yep.
So this one had a lot of the firefighters and stuff out. A lot of fun. A lot of fun slices of life in rural southern Italy. We talked about things are being closed, and I want to kind of circle back and touch on that. A lot of corporate speak. But no, I wanted to mention too that when we say things are closed, we do mean, like, let's say take Rome, for example. You're not going to necessarily see a lot of, you will see things closed in Rome, but like a lot of touristy restaurants do not close. Grocery stores will close on the day of Ferragosto, maybe a day before or afterwards, but not like for a month.
Right.
That's I'm thinking for you all, if you're all coming, like the Colosseum will be open again, probably not the day of, but like around there. Sometimes, not often. I don't think for Ferragosto, but for other holidays, there will be like free days or free entry days into like archaeological sites and museums. I don't think Ferragosto is one of those days.
I don't think so. And a lot of smaller museums will be closed. Some of the larger museums will stay open, but a lot of smaller ones will close for Ferragosto, for August 15th.
And the thing is, so when we, and again, I guess when we say if you're wondering, then what's closed, like if all these things seem open, it's kind of like what you would need if you were living there, or and again, you're an artist. So like we know, with that in mind, like a lot of galleries are closed. A lot of art supply stores are closed.
A lot of art supply stores take a long vacation. Yes. They'll take like 2 or 3 weeks in August.
Well, and I think we found, like, we went to Perugia a few years ago, and then we got there and found this art supply store. It was fantastic because Perugia is a very collegey town. And we went, I think, once or twice to get supplies, and you were kind of like putting together a list. And then we went, I think, the third time, and he was closed, but he was closed from like August 8th to like September 5th. And we're like, oh, so you're just
no
closed
more
now.
Art supplies.
Yeah. So there's a, I think there's also like, and this is Perugia now specifically, but there were like bakeries were closed, butchers were closed, salumerias, which sell like olives and dried meats and cheeses, and sort of like kind of like bodegas, but a little bit more focused on like the dried meats and cheeses. A lot of those really small family run ones or single person run ones will be closed. So.
And restaurants that are more family run, especially as you get, like, thinking about Rome.
Yes.
As you get away from the historic center and from the sort of touristy, highly touristed areas, you will notice a lot of things are closed. Restaurants will be closed there. Cafes in neighborhoods, we've noticed, they swap off and on.
Yeah.
So usually there's more than one cafe within walking distance of any given apartment or home in Rome.
They're not crazy people, of course.
Right, exactly. So even if they're blocks and blocks away from each other, they will swap off. So one cafe will always be open while the other one takes a couple-week vacation. Pasticcerias, the pastry shops, will often take a pretty long break, especially if they're family run. But again, this is all outside of the like sort of main touristy area, which you probably will find yourself in. If you're not staying right next to the Colosseum, you might find yourself in a neighborhood that has things closed.
And actually, a good example is if you are, we've talked about this before, but the neighborhood around the Vatican, for example, is called Prati, Prati. And it tends to be more residential than tourism-based, tourism-centric. And that is a neighborhood we've noticed in August again, from July 31st to August 1st, it is just a total switch. Like a switch has been flipped, basically. Because we've talked about this market there, the Trionfale market, and we go there and buy vegetables and stuff, and they're still operational. Like the actual structure is open, but even in the market, we've noticed that. Again, July 31st, almost every stall is open. August 1st, half the stalls are closed, if not more. A lot of the bakeries in that neighborhood are closed. A lot of the, Bonchi, I think, is closed for a bit, which is a famous bakery. So there's a lot of that type of stuff are completely closed. And that's in a pretty well-trafficked area, or well-trafficked by tourist area. And we're not even talking about like outside of Rome. We're just talking about sort of like, you might still pass through that. So
one note I have thinking about Bonchi, because I think they do take a vacation for sure. If you have a list in your mind of places that you want to visit, like pastry shops,
Sure,
specific ones, obviously Google Maps has dates and times of opening, but I would check people's social medias, like check Instagram, or if you have Facebook. Often places like Bonchi will post their festival days. What's it called?
No, exactly.
Their
ferie.
yeah. When they're going to be on vacation. That might not be on their regular like Google hours. So
Yes.
you can check their social media.
That's actually good, especially because this is going to be coming out on July 30th, I think, this episode. So if you are in Rome, or not even in Rome, but if you're in Italy, you're about to be in Italy, you're coming to Italy, you're like, oh, I'm coming there in 2 weeks. I had no idea things would be closed. That is definitely something to check. And again, I think you talked about this right at the beginning. You mentioned authenticity, maybe not.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, again, this kind of is all working towards a sense that the authentic parts of any major city will not be there.
Yeah.
When I think it's the same thing, like a lot of the tourism knickknack shops, a lot of the tourism restaurants, a lot of the little things that are very much there for tourists will be. But like, again, I'm thinking about Rome, where you're walking down a street and you're like, oh, that's a leather seller, or that's somebody who's making I don't know. Sometimes there's like somebody who does the recaning of chairs. You know what I'm talking about? Like the restrawing of chairs, and it's cute. It's like one of those workshops that looks like it's been there for 350 years, and those will all be closed though. So there's definitely be a sense, I think, in August, and I know that because we every time we're in August for the house sit, we're there usually we were there from June all the way to August, and it was like June, July, packed, full of interesting things, all these little shops we've never seen before. And as soon as August hit, it felt like a wasteland, and all of a sudden you hit like that one place selling like Rome hats, and then a wasteland, and then the limoncello bottles, or limoncello bottles, or whatever it is. So I definitely think your experience will be in a city not as authentic as it could have been if you went earlier or later.
Yeah, for sure.
If that makes sense.
For sure. Especially in places like Rome. I think we were talking off air about some cities like Siena seemed pretty packed.
For sure. For sure.
In around August, with Italians and tourists, international tourists. I imagine that a lot of people from Sienese, I don't know what they call themselves, because people who actually live there do have vacation in August, they might be leaving, but it's still, there was a more of a sense that Siena was a bit of a living city rather than Rome, where it really was like, oh dang, all the Romans have left.
No, and I think that is a big part of it. We talked about Perugia as well. It was the same thing, where it's a college town. So I think we were even staying in an Airbnb, and the landlords are very nice, and they're like, yeah, you guys can extend the stay as long as you want. But I think it was like September 5th or whatever is when school starts, and we need the apartment back because we're going to rent it to students instead. But all that is to say is I think there's a natural shift of seasons, like the vacation season and then the school season and this and that. And we did notice, I think, that some places tend to get more people in August, tend to get fewer. And it's just more about, like, again, we'll talk about this more, like the good sides of this in the next episode. But if you're looking for, like, I want to go to Rome, and I want to go to Rome and like really get an experience, I mean Rome specifically. Milan, I think, would like this. Torino would be like this. Maybe Naples, but even, I mean, not as much, I would say, because when we've been to Naples in August, it's not dead by any stretch of the imagination. No. So I think that one's a little bit different. But all that is simply to say is the big cities will be emptier. However, the smaller ones will usually be fuller, more full. And even including like Venice and things like that, where even if it's not, people aren't going for the beach, it's just there are Italians who would like to go, to Venice to visit
on their vacation.
So some of the classically popular vacation sites do get more packed in August.
Yeah, I agree.
Which actually kind of leads to the next fun little segue, which segues nicely to my next fun little bit.
Yeah.
What a fun use of language. And it's the fact that it makes sense, but a lot of the train maintenance tends to be scheduled for August. As we found, Sometimes the strikes will be in August, not often. Some usually like June and July, whatever. But we've noticed that a lot of maintenance tends to be scheduled for August because it's a big, it's a vacation month. But I think they expect people to already be wherever they're going.
It's interesting. So I was trying to find specific dates because I think a few episodes ago we gave you guys some specific dates for strikes, for transportation strikes in July. And what I found was that in 2024 there was a major uproar because there were there's just a bunch of what is it called, construction work being done on train lines all across Italy. And it was the thought of the train companies, like, like you just said, nobody's traveling, they're all on vacation.
Yeah.
And a lot of Italians and tourists as well, but Italians were really loud about it. They're like, no, we take public transportation to get to our vacation spot, and now we can't. And I know Trenitalia did a good job, and people did comment on this. Trenitalia did a good job of making sure there were buses and other modes of transportation in place to replace that train line that was that was under construction. But it seemed like some bus companies and maybe Italo, I don't want to call them out, I don't know that specifically, but it seemed like some other companies didn't do that. They were just like, surprise, it's construction, sorry, no mode of transportation there. So that's all to say, I think it's going to be better this August. I didn't see as many notifications that there was going to be as much construction. I think there was a lot last year and people were upset about it. And so they did a lot. It seems like there were many days in July. They were construction days. That's not to say that everything's going to be running perfectly, but I think they changed it a bit this year.
That's good to know. And I think at the same time, they shouldn't, if I'm not mistaken, they shouldn't offer for sale any trains that would be running on a track that's doing construction. Right. So you're not going to be like, oh, I bought this ticket and now they're doing construction on that track. Unless, of course, it's emergency construction or something like that.
No,
but a lot of it is scheduled. So I say that in terms, if you've already bought your ticket, and
you should be good to go.
You should be good to go. And as you mentioned too, Italo, I think that's one of the reasons. It's one of the, I like Trenitalia. I'm a loyalist to Trenitalia. And I think part of it though is they are legally obliged or obligated to provide transportation when one of their modes is down. So when the train goes down, they have to provide adequate buses. I think because Italo is a private company, they don't operate by the same standards. So, and they also have buses. They partner with, I think, Itabus, but they don't own Itabus, ITA bus. To make sure it's not like Itabus.
No, Itabus.
And so they partner with them, but I don't think they are legally obliged to offer the same sort of thing if they're down. Because I think it's also the same thing with Trenitalia. People are like, you have literally a corporate monopoly on transportation apart from Italo. So it's like if you're going down for a week, we have no way of getting to places. So it's obviously a legal thing where they have to allow you out of the place. Which is all to say, a lot of times buses will still run, and I think even on that note, sometimes, and you can absolutely check online before you go anywhere, but buses will run either a vacation schedule. What is that called? When it's a day off schedule.
Holiday schedule?
That's the one. Thank you. They'll run a holiday schedule, or they'll run some sort of a Ferragosto schedule. But for those of you who are going to Amalfi Coast or something like that, who are going to be like, it's going to be hot, I want to go to the beach, the Sito Sud, which runs the bus out there, will absolutely have basically a way of getting out there.
Yes. And
I think the last thing I wanted to mention, unless you had more thoughts, and I'm really trying to keep this under 30 minutes, is just the heat.
Yes.
It's been this is very much a 2025 episode, I'll be honest. This is not going to be one of those evergreen ones, in the sense that 2025 has been a very weird year in terms of the summer so far. At least I think so, because it's like clockwork in the last couple of years. It's decent weather until the end of June, a heat wave in July. It doesn't cool down that much. It cools down to the 90s, and then it's pretty much 90s all the way to August, where rainstorms happen. It cools down to mid 80s, and then, and that's been like clockwork for the last 4 or 5 years. And now it's been we've had, and I mean, some of you might know if you've already been in Italy, we went from a crazy heat wave in June, which has been usually earlier than we normally get it, to spring or fall, the day, really 2 days later, it went from 100 something degrees to 70 something degrees. And even the last couple of days, we went to the beach and it was almost 100 the day we went to the beach. 2 days later, which is yesterday, day before, it was 71. Today, I think 75. I mean, so it's just kind of been wild, which is all to say, normally I would highly recommend not coming in August, simply because it is more likely to have a heat wave in August. And it's also a lot more likely just for it to be hot. And when things are closed, you mentioned earlier, sometimes there will be smaller museums closed and things like that. But when there are fewer ways to get out of the heat,
Right.
it does change it drastically. And I mean, there are rules around using the air conditioning in Italy, and some of them won't apply to you because it's more about businesses, office buildings, things like that. But it still will apply if you are in one of those hotels in which you cannot control, like if you don't have a heat pump in your room or AC in your room. If the hotel controls it, I think they can only go 20 degrees lower than the outside temperature, which, if it's 98 outside, it can only go down to 78, which is not bad. I mean, that was great. I think it's 20 degrees lower. It might be like only 15. But it's something where you're like, oh, it's not like, it could still feel hot if you're not in direct air blast and there's no fan in your room. Which is all to say, I think August tends to be one of the hottest months in Italy.
Absolutely.
Like just traditionally. So if you're coming and you're not even not prepared, but if you're just sort of like, oh, it'll be fine, but like you just, again, fewer things being open, fewer ways to jump inside and cool off, it can easily end up being a time for heat stroke, basically.
Absolutely. And also, if you were, like you were saying, like cafes and bodegas open, little corner stores, if you're walking around and there's nowhere to get a bottle of water,
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
going to feel 100 times worse than if there were a couple bodegas open, So stay hydrated, stay in the shade, do your
Stay cool.
best, stay cool. It seems like it hasn't been as wild this year heat wise, but it's still going to be hot.
And I think that is everything. Like, I mean, that's the last of my notes.
That was so concise.
I know. It felt very
We
concise.
did it.
And I think if I may just do a little cap, like, now you're like, we did it, Nathaniel. Don't keep talking. Like, one little cap, because I think a lot of people do say, don't come in August, don't come in August, don't come in August. It is a very weird time to come. Because you would think, I don't know, mentally, it's like, why wouldn't I come in the time where everybody's taking a vacation? It's a perfect time to go. It just is a kind of competition. We'll talk about the benefits of coming in August in the next episode, but I will just say if you are looking for an authentic experience in a city, and if you're looking for a very relaxed experience in a city, I wouldn't recommend August. And I guess
I agree.
I keep saying city. I just mean Rome or Milan, maybe Florence, maybe. That one's a little bit more, I mean, it's still touristed by Italians. Even Italians like going to Florence. Bari, though, Naples, even kind of. Again, that one's a bit of a weird one because I think, and I'm completely making this up, but I get the sense that more people live in Naples year-round than they do in Rome. In the sense of, I think a lot more people in Rome are not from Rome, but are there for work or school or something like that and
I agree.
leave. But I think in Naples, it tends not to be that way.
I would also say, this is a broad generalization, but the demographic, like people in Rome tend to have more disposable income,
For sure.
by and large, than people who live in Naples.
Yeah.
So I think people who live in Rome can afford a
week or
far away
two on the
exactly. Where
water.
people in Naples are like, I'm going to take the train to the beach today.
And that's the other thing. I mean, if you're living in Naples, like, you can take the train to Sorrento or Positano. You can take a bus to the Positano. It's like, where else would you? Why, you can go to a different beach? That's the best beach. It's right there. Why would you go somewhere else? So I wonder if there's that aspect. Plus, a lot of Napolitani do like just swim like in Posillipo or something like that. In the area around, which already has really nice beaches as well. So
Right. But I really would say that by and large, every city is going to be different than its regular
yes,
modus operandi in August. That like the population is going to turn over a bit, and it's just going to be slightly different than the rest of the year.
and I think that's actually a great, honestly, not to cut you or myself off, but a good note to end on is if you come in August, whatever experience you have is not going to be an experience that you'll have the rest of the year.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So it's going to be a very specific August experience in terms of either you go to a small town and it's packed, or you go to a big city and it's empty. So we'll talk about that more in the next episode, but I think that's a good encapsulation.
Alrighty.
So with that being said, thank you so
we're going
much.
to bring you the positives.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening, and I'm hopefully you're enjoying these 30-minute episodes because I feel like I'm like sprinting a marathon. That does
doing
make
great.
no sense. But thank you so much for listening.
Okay. Tanti abbracci.